Alrighty, again, thank you all so much for joining us today for our last workshop for supervisors for the month of June. I still cannot believe that we're already hitting the last week of June and school's about to start right before we know it, right? Today we have Missy joining us from ASU's Career Services, talking about how we can include the NACE competencies more in our job descriptions in the interview process. So with that being said, Missy, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks, Abby. I'm so thrilled to be here to chat with you all about how we can incorporate NACE competencies into our hiring process. So just for me to get a pulse, how many folks in the room know the NACE competencies very well, are really used to using these in crafting job descriptions already, in creating interview questions, all of the things that we're going to go over today? How many folks are already pretty comfortable doing that? Yeah. Not very, maybe a little bit. Everyone's being a little shy. Okay, familiar, but do not use them. Totally. Never heard of NACE. We'll go over that when I start doing my presentation. Okay, great. So then most of us maybe have never done this before. So this is great. I kind of started with basics. So let me share my screen here. Okay, so confirm with me that you can see my screen, the slides. Okay, excellent. And I will admit that I am very bad at looking at the chat and doing presentations. So Abby, feel free to interrupt me if there's like some burning questions going through, because I might just be focused on this. So
sounds great. I got you.
Thank you. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about utilizing NACE competencies in working learner development. So like Abby mentioned, my name is Missy. I am the Assistant Director of Career Readiness in Career Services, the overarching Career Services office here in the Tempe campus located in the Student Services building. And I hire a ton of students, peers, management interns, as well as full-time staff. So yeah, very versed in using the competencies and doing this on a large scale. So here's what we're going to cover today. What even are the career competencies? Some of us may not know. How can we embed these competencies into our job descriptions and interview questions? Career Services has a tool called Big Interview that is free for you as staff to use during your hiring process. And I'll share about how I use this to streamline our interview process, hiring our peers last year. And then how to ensure that students are learning the skills, the competencies, through your student employment opportunities for them. All right, so what even are the competencies? So first, I wanted to share about the career myth is that the student's career qualifies them for a career after college, which of course could be true, right? They major in accounting, they become an accountant. They major in nursing, they become a nurse. But the reality is that the skills that they learn in the classroom, the skills that they learn when they're in their job with you all, with me, their student leadership on campus, all of that really encompasses their qualifications for a job, which may or may not align directly with their degree. So now we'll talk about the competencies. So NACE stands for the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And I always share about it as kind of like the governing body of career services. So NACE encompasses career centers nationally, internationally. I went to the conference a couple weeks ago, and there were folks from career centers in Canada and Australia and from Europe. So this is really a big organization. And also they focus on new grad hiring. So they work with employers who hire new grads. What NACE does every year, so for the 12 plus years that I've been working in career services, NACE has always come out at the end of the year with these competencies. And to be honest, they've kind of stayed relatively the same for the last about 12 years. So what NACE does is they survey all of the employers that hire students, and they say, what are the skills, competencies, expertise that you're looking for from new grads as you're hiring them into your entry-level positions? And this is the list that they typically come up with. So they're looking for students who are competent in career and self-development, communication, equity and inclusion, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, technology, and critical thinking. So these are what employers are telling NACE, right? It's self-reported. So NACE sends them a survey. Career Services, we send the students a survey about their careers post-graduation. So this is what the employers are saying that they're looking for. And I feel like as my job as a supervisor, I want to know that when my students leave my office, they have all of these skills, or as many of these skills that the jobs that I have my students do will allow, right? Because maybe some of our jobs may not allow certain things, right? It just isn't part of the nature of the job. I would argue that probably most of these things are likely in most of the opportunities that we have for students. Okay, so here's a little bit more definition. So I feel like I wanted to make sure that everybody has kind of a baseline knowledge of these before we get into some activities. So for career and self-development, the students proactively develop themselves and their career through continual personal and professional learning, awareness, strengths, weaknesses, all of that stuff. Like this is something that I'll always talk to my students in our office, our peers, about, what do they want to do post-graduation and how can we help them get there? Communication, so emails, Slack messages, like all of those things that we do with our student workers. Equity and inclusion, we're on a very diverse campus. You probably hire diverse students in your opportunities. How are they getting in front of people that are different than them? And engage in anti-racist practices that actively challenge system structures and policies of racism, all of that. Leadership, are there ways for your students to move up onto the team, to move into more leadership roles? I know this year I hired 2 really amazing management interns, and we ended up hiring them on full-time on our team after their year of working for us as management interns. And that was because we gave them the opportunity to learn and grow, and we created those leadership opportunities for them on the team. Professionalism, I think of this one as like time management, effective work habits, act in the interest of the larger community and workspace, all of those things. I know that's probably one that my students struggle with the most is professionalism. So we know that it's one that we really need to work hard to make sure that they understand the importance of that. Teamwork, build and maintain collaborative relationships to work effectively towards common goals while appreciating diverse viewpoints and shared responsibilities. Working on a team. How are you as a supervisor giving your students an opportunity to work together on something towards a common goal? Technology. What technologies are you all using as part of your workflow, and making sure that the students really understand those technologies and the reason behind them? And then critical thinking. This one always comes up in the NACE competencies. So identifying and responding to the needs based on understanding of situational context, logistical analysis of relevant information. How are they able to do that critical thinking for your team? Okay, so now is the time for you to reflect. I would love for you to write in the chat. How do your working learner positions align with the NACE competencies? So Abby wrote to everybody in the Slack channel about maybe bringing a job description that you've used in the past, or perhaps you're getting ready to post a position for your peers. What are some ways that they already align with the NACE competencies? And these are the competencies as a reminder. So I shared some of mine when I was going through the more in-depth. Oh, go ahead, Abby. Were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, one of the positions that I supervise is a communication specialist. So that student in that position is definitely utilizing that communication skill in both verbal and written communication forms. But I mean, of course, then professionalism is taking key there too, because they're having to learn how to send a professional email or professional Slack message.
Yep.
So that's absolutely one that jumps to mind right away.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Definitely using communication in that way. Okay, Jennifer said, I work with the programming board and very much developing the leadership skill. Yes, exactly. I think like part 2 to this would be how to get the students to understand the skills that they're learning, right? That's something that we're trying to bring to student clubs and organizations, of like the value that these opportunities, the value of a student position on campus, and how to translate that onto their resume. That's like step 2. What else? Does anyone else have any?
I would say,
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say with my office, our student workers who are at the front of the admission services office, just for context, they are getting some experience on what it's like with the professionalism for sure, because they're having to wear, business casual. They're there when the building opens at 8. Some of them are there till 5 p.m. when it closes. So very much Monday to Friday kind of thing. So they're learning how it's like to work in kind of an office setting. They use lots of different technologies in order to go through all of our different systems that they have to answer questions for potential students, prospective students, customers, whoever it might be. And then there's a lot of communication with other departments. So referring students back to their advisor and giving them that point of contact so they don't just walk off into the middle of nowhere. They know where they're going. So really helping them build up that communication style and making sure they help everybody.
Totally. And I would even argue that a lot of that is also critical thinking. So they're trying to, like a person comes in, I know our students get this a lot. They come to career services asking all of these wild questions that have nothing to do with our office. And you all are on the first floor, right? So you probably get more of that than we do on the third floor. But the students at the front desk have to think critically. They also might have to use a little bit of teamwork, right? To come and ask you questions if they don't know the answer to it, or one of the other colleagues down in admission.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Missy, we share an office, a registrar and admission services. They have to ask each other because some of them are registrar student workers, some of them are admissions. So they work together a lot.
Yeah. So that's amazing. And also be thinking about, do they know that they're getting these skills, right? Like, how can we also help them recognize the skills that they're getting? Okay, we had a couple things come through in the chat as well. Okay, so Shannon, okay, now the chat is popping off. Okay. Our text editors require proficient use of technology, specifically character recognition software, word processing software, and other softwares to create materials in alternative formats. Amazing. Yes, absolutely. Technology, learning how to use platforms like Salesforce and bookings. Yes, exactly. Salesforce is a huge skill that a student can put on their resume for knowing how to use. A lot of companies use what is it, a customer relations manager tool. So knowing how to use something like that is super valuable. Lorelei says, we meet with our students to ask career goals or interests. Oh my gosh, amazing. We recently opened up a team lead opportunity. Fantastic. Our goals are to help build communication, technology, and professionalism. How wonderful. I love that. I also have that kind of conversation with my students as well, to make sure that we're giving them the skills and tools that they need to be successful in their job search. Yeah, it's been amazing. Shannon is giving Lorelei some kudos there. Great. Jennifer says rec center and student union, those student employees manage the building and all incidents when pro staff are not present. Critical thinking. Yes. And also, again, how are we recognizing them for that, so I think that would be great. We also do have a lead role in our office in career services as well. I think we have career services offices on all of the campuses, and so we have leads. Typically, we have leads on all of the campuses in our office, which is really beneficial. Yeah. Okay, anybody else feel like sharing before we move on to the next slide?
I did get one more, Missy, that says, again, working with photo assistants, and this is helping students build teamwork, professionalism, and again, utilizing that technology skill, which I just love to point out too, the fact that our students are using multiple skills throughout their different tasks or projects. Like it's not just one specific skill, but they're utilizing many of these skills. So I love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love
Yeah,
it too.
Roger,
we have all my student workers are man IT help desk for the School of Computing and Augmented Intelligence. This is the largest school, Fulton Schools of Engineering. So they learn all of these competencies. The reason I'm here is how to help them track this stuff and move it onto their resume.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that's a really big part of our job as supervisors is like, how do the students translate this onto their resume? And it's something that we in career services, just to pitch us for a second, like we can absolutely come into your student group. Like if you have a regular meeting and you want us to come in and kind of share that with them, we're more than happy to do that. We can also train you all. This presentation isn't going to be for that necessarily, but we can get into that kind of at the end once we go through the job description and interview portion of it. But I'll keep that in the back of my mind too. Okay. So now we're going to do an activity. How can you better showcase the competencies within your already written job description? So hopefully all of you have a job description on the ready. Abby so graciously gave me one of hers that she recently posted, I think you said, that we're going to use in this activity. So we're going to actually use AI. How many people are a little bit scared of ChatGPT or any other job board? How many of you all are really excited to use it and ready to dive in and like help the students learn how to use it in the correct way? That's where I'm at. I'm excited to learn more. We have an AI committee here in career services that I'm a part of. So when I started doing this presentation, I was like, I think we're going to incorporate AI into helping us revamp our job descriptions. So I'm going to go away from the presentation for a moment. So you're going to open ChatGPT. This is going to be interactive. So if you have ChatGPT already, you can open that. If you need to create an account, you can do that quick. I will also be showcasing an example here. So if you want to just follow along, that's cool too. We can do this together. And then if you have questions later on, let me know. I actually tried this with my my most recent peer position, and it worked really, really well. So Abby graciously is going to let me use one of her positions to feed it into ChatGPT. So you're going to use the prompt, please analyze the job description with the NACE career competencies, and then you paste the position. So I'll show you. So here's chat. Everyone can see ChatGPT. Okay, so I pasted that prompt, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the essential duties in the job description and the minimum and desired qualifications. I'm going to pull just that. So not the whole job description, just a portion of it. Hit enter. Let's see what happens. So it shows the NACE competencies right here. And then for each of the bullet points that I fed it, so all of these bullet points, it tells you which competencies that bullet point is using, which is pretty cool. So you can tell in this first one, complete graphic design projects for print, web, video format software such as Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, etc. Digital technology, critical thinking, problem solving, working with university colleges design team, teamwork, collaboration, oral written communication. So look at all of this feedback, y'all. There's so much. Summary of mapped competencies. So here, this job description emphasizes competencies in digital technology, oral written communications, teamwork, collaboration, and critical thinking, problem solving with notable aspects of professionalism, work ethic, and leadership. That's pretty good, I think, right? That seems like a pretty good, effective job description. So then the next prompt is, are there any competencies missing? right? Like what's missing there? So then I could go in, what did I say? Are there any competencies missing from the job description above? So let's copy that. So then it tells you how well covered all of these competencies are. So the missing competencies, Abby, look like it's global intercultural fluency and leadership might be a little bit more. So, and then they give you suggestions. So how can you add this to your job description? So it already tells you, I can Slack this to you later. So it tells you, you can add in a bullet saying experience working in or with diverse and multicultural environments is preferred. Demonstrated ability to communicate and collaborate effectively with people from diverse backgrounds. So it gives you these ideas of how you can improve the job description so that it's more aligned with the NACE competencies, which I think is pretty cool. I never, before I was on this AI committee, I never would have thought of doing this to update a job description, but I mean, it's so helpful. So do that with yours, take it with some grace, you know, to know that we're all kind of, you know, some of us, this is our first time using the NACE competencies. Maybe, you know, if you've inherited these job descriptions from elsewhere, perhaps they need a little bit of a refresh. And this is a great way to kind of get that refresh. You know, if this were mine that I was doing this for, I would probably read through all of this just to kind of like understand. I can send it to you, Abby. and like understand how to make it better. So does that all make sense?
Missy, this is awesome because like you said, I never thought to plug this into ChatGPT. And as I'm getting ready to create some new job descriptions here in the next week or so, definitely going to be considering this and utilizing this for those.
Yeah, and what's cool is it can be done for any job description, right? Like not only student staff, but also pro staff, MIs, like all of these things where we know we want to get people who want to grow either up in our team or to grow their career wherever they want it to go. Using this to see, to add in these competencies would be like, it's like the best thing that you can do. So yeah, so then if ChatGPT didn't suggest any additional stuff, you can prompt suggest ways to add the missing competencies to this job description and it will give it to you as well. And notice that I didn't even have to write job description. I literally put JD and it knew what I was talking about. So that's kind of cool. Okay. So then I did this slide for those of us who might be a little bit more skeptical for using AI. So pick a competency that you need to add to your job description. You can visit the NACE website and review sample behaviors. So NACE also has a resource for this as well. You can then ask ChatGPT for help again and see what the results are. So I'm curious if anyone went through these prompts with us and how did that go for you? I think the next one, I'll go right here to the pulse check. So how did that go for you to put the job description in ChatGPT? If you did that, let me know your feedback. Abby already is on board. How's everyone else feeling?
I did it with my job description, and the third kind of extra prompt of the how could I rewrite it gave me suggestions, but also rewrote it for me. So it like put all of those suggestions into it automatically, which was time saving. Obviously I have to go through and read it more in depth in a minute, but I think it's a good way to do it. I've not thought to use it for job descriptions, so it's helpful.
Yeah, great. I'm glad. Anybody else wish to share either in the chat or with your voice?
I was just going to add, I guess I should probably put my microphone down. So I'm a millennial, so I love ChatGPT. I feel like it's just come out as I've been going into grad school. It's like best blessing ever. No cheating, I promise. But I will say we used ChatGPT a few months ago to refine some of the questions. And then we use, now the question is the job description, and then we use the job description to have ChatGPT help us write interview questions. And that was an exceptional tool to use. So no regrets there as well.
I love that. Yeah, our next section, we're going to be talking about questions. I didn't do that, Shannon, so thank you for saying that. I did it based on past questions that I used, but that seems even more effective to create job description or to create questions based on the job description. Yeah, brilliant. Oh, Jack did it too. Amazing. I love that. I'll take that back to our team too. See, this is more of a think tank than me just like sharing information to you all. What else? Who else has nuggets of wisdom they'd like to share?
Missy, I'm just really learning. I need to be more on board with this AI stuff and not as nervous, scared about it because I'm missing out on a great tool.
Yes. Yes, yeah, we're actually reading a book called Career Coach GPT, and it's all about career coaching using ChatGPT. So a bunch of us in career services, not only ours, but WP Carey and Fulton, all of us are in this, we're doing a book club about it. So happy to share more about that too, once we're, a little bit deeper into that book. So it's, yeah, being a prompt engineer is going to be like the #1 skill that we're going to have to learn as educators in this space, especially with our collaboration with OpenAI. Yeah. Okay, so there was one slide that I skipped over. So I said, what if the nature of the work doesn't align with all of the competencies? I think that's okay. I think as long as the students know that they don't have to get all the skills from one particular opportunity, whether it's their on-campus job, their student leadership position, it doesn't matter where they get the experience to gain the competency, just that they're actually getting that. So when you're working with your students, I encourage you, try to figure out which ones are also in clubs and organizations. And when you're having those conversations, like we mentioned earlier about what do you want to, that career conversation that you all might be having with your students, they may not come to my office, they might just go to you all, right? So feeling empowered to have that conversation with them. If you need help, let us know. We can help you. We can train your staff to have those career conversations with your students. Absolutely. That's something that we do all the time because we know that we can't see every single student. So if you're already having these conversations, I think that would be great. And we can also motivate them to gain these competencies elsewhere. So we could encourage them to join a club or organization, to get a summer internship, to depending on what skill they're looking to gain, maybe of something, or you can introduce them to someone, or there's ways that we can be that connector for the students to get, so that we know that they're leaving ASU with these skills, being career ready. Okay, so now we're going to talk about interview questions, and I really like Shannon's approach. Okay. So how do you assess the NACE competencies in the interview? So some of us aren't doing that right now. And I'll admit, like, that's not really at the top of my mind when I go through an interview with somebody, are the NACE competencies, but it is something good for us to be thinking about. Okay, so now we're going to be going into another activity. So if you can find interview questions that you've used, or if you want to use the method that Shannon suggested of going into ChatGPT and asking it to create interview questions for you based on the job description. So I might do that. Okay, so the prompt might be based on the job description. What are 10 interview questions to ask? I feel like I want to be more specific, but we might prompt it again. Oh, see, and it goes right into the competencies. Look at that. Follow-up questions. Look at that. It's done. I thought the second prompt might be integrate the NACE competencies into these questions, but since we've already been talking to it and AI is smart, it already included all of them in the questions. And of course, you all, like Jack mentioned, like reread everything, of course, make sure it sounds like your department, your unit. Make sure that you make it relatable to ASU and your department before you just copy and paste these questions. So these are good ones. Can you describe a challenging design project you worked on and explain how you approach solving the issues that arose? How do you ensure that the concept and project goals of your design work are effectively communicated to non-design team members? I feel like that's a really good one. You can probably say it in a more student-friendly way. Maybe I'll say that. Can you ask questions that are for a student worker position at a university?
The first thing I noticed, Missy, right off the bat, was one of those first questions was saying, can you describe a time when you had to solve a problem from a class project? And I love that because I oftentimes feel like students don't think that they can use class projects as examples or as experience, even though absolutely that is experience that you're gaining.
Totally. Yeah. And we see that all the time. They don't think that they can put class projects on their resume, and they absolutely can, especially if they've done a significant project in that class. Absolutely, that has to be on their resume. And they don't think that. So do you see how these questions are a little bit more student friendly than the first round? So that's why I said the thing about prompt engineering, because we as users of the AI just need to ask it smart questions to get it to output exactly what we need. Because that first round of questions was great, but maybe these are a lot more student friendly, I think, than the first round.
I like these questions. I think that there's the one with the class project. I think sometimes you'll get a lot of the same answers, so it's not always a great, question to ask. 'Cause I get a lot of FSC 100 or whatever that class is where they all have to do the exact same project. So just all the engineering students at least did the same project, and so they all talk about how they were the ones who put everything together and all of their peers didn't help them at all. So definitely when you're looking through it, you're going to see some overlap there. So maybe I would suggest adding some additional context into that one, maybe, but that would be my only suggestion on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, and then Abby just put in the chat ASU's AI website. So Career Services is in process of creating like guidelines for students using AI in the job search. And ASU has their own policies. So we're taking all of that into consideration as we're incorporating AI in most of our materials moving forward.
Hey, Missy, for anyone that doesn't currently have a ChatGPT account, is there somewhere specific they need to go within an ASU website to get that access, or is it free for anybody to use? Do you suggest using your ASU email address for this?
Yeah, I use my ASU email address for this. I actually have another one that I use on my personal computer. That's my personal Gmail account. And this that I'm using right now is the free version. There's a new upgraded version that I believe staff should be getting access to for the upcoming academic year to use, which is a little bit better. It pulls from like outside sources. I might actually have it because this should be a place where you could like drop a file if you wanted to drop a file in there. Yeah, as staff, we should be getting full access. Right now, it's not behind SSO or anything. So you can just create an account at Open or Chat. I just Google ChatGPT and it comes up and then it says create an account and then you can create an account for free. But just recognizing that you don't want to put in anything that has personal data, student sensitive data, nothing like that, because it becomes like public use information. So even when we're using it for like students' resumes, they shouldn't upload their whole entire resume, just the bullet points that they want to be, that they want assistance in creating or updating or modifying, so that there's none of their contact information on there or anything. Okay, I think we took care of this one. So this one that I created was what I did was I inputted the questions that I already asked students, and I asked them if I was covering the NACE competencies in those questions. I like what we did here better than this, to be honest. So I might, right after this meeting, like update this, because I think that's way more effective what we did. So modifying your questions according to that. Okay, we already did an example live. How's everybody feeling about this? Put it in the chat. If someone wants to speak again, please let me know. And then we're going to get into the actual interview. Okay, people are feeling good. Excellent. Okay. So streamline the interview process by utilizing big interviews. So this is, like I said, an AI tool that our career services team uses. So this is the website right here. I believe all of you should have access to Big Interview. If you want to use it for your interview process for students, you can let me know and I can get you on the back end so that you can create an assignment and then use it perhaps for your first round of interviews, which is what I did when I had over 400 applicants for a student position and needed some way to reduce the size of that. So essentially, hold on, let me just make sure I didn't. Okay. Okay. So essentially what you can do on Big Interview that I did that I really loved is that I actually recorded myself asking the questions that I had come up with for the peer question. We narrowed it down from like 400 to like 50 students that we wanted to interview for like 5 positions that we were hiring for. And so I recorded myself asking the questions on Big Interview. I sent the students a template email. I share all of this information with staff and faculty who hire students within the last year. So if you're interested in using this, please let me know. I can share all of that information with you. I sent an email to the students inviting them to take the interview on Big Interview. I gave them a deadline when they had to complete the interview by. And what happens is they log into Big Interview, they're given a code. They put the code into an interview assignment, and then they can take the interview. And they're given, I think I gave them 2 chances to do the interview. And then they see me asking the question because I recorded myself, and then they answer the question via their webcam or whatever. I give them some guidelines, take this as an interview, don't read your answers. Because the first time we did it, people were just like, you could see them reading their answers from a piece of paper, like to the side of their computer. And I was like, don't do that. Not a good look. So I give them some guidelines, make sure your roommates aren't home, all of those things that you tell people that you live with that you're doing this interview. And then I give them the interview. They do that. Then I had my staff go through, or me and staff go through the interviews and then decide who we wanted to bring in for actual like Zoom interviews for the process. So that narrowed it down from like 50, only I think 35 to 39 students completed the Big Interview. So it like totally helped us narrow down the prospects of people who were serious, because those people didn't follow through. And then we went through those, 30 or 40 students and then narrowed it down to 11. And then that really helped because imagine trying to coordinate all of those interviews, right? So this is a good way to do a first round of interviews, I would recommend. For those that get a huge volume of applicants, or for those who have, for those who hire large numbers of students, to use this as like a first round is super, super, super helpful, especially if you have a team of people who can help you go through the interviews, go through the resumes and cover letters. I even enlisted the help of some of my peers, of some of the student workers, to help me like look through my MIs, full-time staff. Like we were all looking through these applications for like a week. It was a big undertaking. So you all have access to this. If you want the back end access, please let me know. I'll have my contact information on the last slide, and I'll put it in the chat for you all too. Okay, so we're going to go back to the competencies now that we talked about big interview. So what experiences can your position offer students so that they develop the competencies? Like, what do you think? We're kind of getting to Roger's question that he posed towards the beginning of this presentation of like, what can you do, or what kind of opportunities can you provide your students to have these opportunities to develop the competencies? And feel free to unmute or to post in the chat what this might look like for you and the positions that you offer to students.
I think one thing, Missy, and this is something I'm speaking even I need to be better at with my students that I supervise, is having the trust in our students that they are capable to complete some more high level or I don't know, like riskier projects or tasks for us. Like, have confidence in our students. They are more than capable.
Yeah, I love that, Abby. I think a lot of students, and I've been working with, I've been supervising students for the better part of the last 7 years. And I think a lot of times the students don't realize that these, in our peer positions, MI positions, that they're getting real world skills, you know, like they don't understand that that's actually what's happening. And if we give them some autonomy, some authority to do something, like we've been talking about on our team, because I supervise about 8 peers right now. And I've been thinking about having them come up with a project that they want to focus on with a subset of students that they're really excited about to bring career development to, and like to let them go and do that project and have touch points, right? Like every time, if they need any help, of course, I'm there to support. And then a check-in at the end of the semester to say, hey, how did that go? What would you have liked? What kind of support would you have needed from me that I didn't give you, or that the team could give you, whatever the case may be, just to have them take some ownership in a project. Oh, Abby said passion project every semester, a project that is aligned with their career goals and also benefits the team and office. Amazing. That's what I'm trying to do with our students. How feasible does that feel for others on the call?
I love the idea. I think sometimes it's hard to get, them, they're very passionate about their passion project, that it's hard to get them back on track to what needs to get done in the timely basis. They'll say, but I'm working on this for you. I'm working on it. And you're like, yes, but I need you to be working on this right now. So I think I need to be better about setting that expectation from the jump, because sometimes I'm just like, yeah, you can switch between the two, but I kind of need to be a little bit more on top of it.
Totally. And I think sometimes students get stuck in that way of thinking, right? They're a little bit more rigid than we are, where we're a little bit more fluid and can kind of like move, and we understand priorities. But I feel like with them, we also, like you said, Jack, like take ownership of that and be like, okay, I just need to make sure that I'm communicating with them in a way that they understand that while this passion project is important, these day-to-day functions are what we hired them to do. Yeah, totally. Yes, Abby says in the chat, that's also a great opportunity to help students understand priorities and time management. 100%. 100%. Okay, I think we can skip that. I think we know Okay, as supervisors, it's our job to ensure the students gain these competencies. And so it sounds like a lot of us are already doing this in some way, shape, or form. But here's some examples, like what more can you offer? How can we collectively make the working learner experience assist our students to be career ready? Are you taking time to get to know your students and what skills they're looking to gain? That's what I always tell the students that work for me. I'm like, you know, if the more I know you, the more I understand your major, the internships you're interested in, like everything that you want out of life, the more I can help you get that. Like I want to help my students gain the skills that they need for the jobs that they want. And if they're not getting that, especially in my office in career services, like our whole job is to help students get jobs. Like I want to make sure that my students also feel that supported along the way. And if I'm not doing that, I'm not doing my job as a supervisor well. So what can we all do collectively as supervisors to ensure that our students are learning critical thinking, professionalism? You know, how can we do that? You know, I loop in, I had an MI come on the team last year, and she was really interested in working with students with disabilities. And so we hired her to be our career advisor, specifically focused on the sales students, because that's a passion project for her. It's something that she really likes to do. We all have partnerships in career services, and one of our MIs came on and was really passionate about fraternity, sorority life in Barrett. And so those were his partners, and he managed those partnerships for me. Like I didn't go to those meetings as the assistant director, my MI did, and went to those meetings. And I was like, these are the skills that I want him to get. Like when I was a graduate student, I was going to, you know, MPACE and NACE events and like little mini conferences and doing presentations and panels and things. Like I know that I was capable at, you know, 22, 23, 24 years old when I was a graduate student and doing this kind of stuff. So I need to trust that my students are also like that. And I think the undergraduate students would also appreciate that amount of trust that we have for them in doing the work that we know that they can do, because they can do great work for us if we let them. And we just have to let go a little bit of our control, right? A practice of trusting that they can do this. So what are some ideas just in this, like, you know, quick little conversation that we're having here? Is this sparking anything for anyone that you're like, actually, this is something that I can do better? This is something that I want to make a priority for this academic year coming up. While you all are thinking, we're putting together some professional development training opportunities for our management interns specifically. So not necessarily we do peer training before the academic year starts, just kind of as a set point for them, expectations, etc. And for our management interns, we want to do something a little bit more robust and have like monthly or every other month kind of professional development for them. To get to just as what I was saying, like to get to know them more, to get to know that we're, you know, helping them develop those skills that we want them to have. So a similar type of program could probably be beneficial for peers as well. Maybe even to have them reflect on the skills that they're learning in their student jobs and how that could potentially help them in further their career.
I know it's kind of following exactly what you're saying, Missy, but I just hired a student last August, and they were a true first-year student straight out of high school. And they told me that they were studying business, they're in WP Carey, but they really didn't know what they wanted to do. Just mom and dad both were in business type roles. So they just felt like that was the one that they had to do. And so I just took that as an option. You know, I asked her, like, what are you wanting to do with that? How can I help you? So we started with business admin type tasks that she would be helping with. And within a month, she was like, this doesn't feel like it's what I want to do. So then we switched it to more of like that marketing piece. And she's really found an avenue within that. And that's the area that she's kind of focusing on within her business degree. And again, she's fully responsible to update our the TV screen, you know, with the digital marketing on it, and connecting with other departments in our suite. Do they have anything that they need updated on there? Events happening that we can highlight there, different things like that. So definitely interested to see how else I might be able to help our students gain more experiences though.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, one of my lead peers last year she has since graduated, and she actually got a job at ASU in the foundation. So we're really excited for her, but she really wanted to go into human resources. So every time I was hiring a management intern, a peer, anything like that, I would loop her in and like bring her into the conversation and have her look at, like before I was so savvy at ChatGPT, I would have like Elizabeth look at all of that stuff, you know, and ask her, what do you think about this job description? Or how could we say this better? Or, hey, come up with a template for this outreach call that we have to do for Teach for America, you know? So, and she loved it when I gave her that opportunity.
Again, just giving them the opportunity to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Risha, I think I saw you come off mute just a second ago. Did you have something you wanted to share too?
Yes. I just wanted to say, like, my experience, like the students, I supervise 5 of them, and I think a lot of times some of us, we tend to just we feel like, oh, we don't want to put too much on them. Some people feel that way, or you are not sure if they're capable. My experience is the students that I'm supervising, they want that. They want the experience. And then that gives them the confidence and the assurance that, hey, I can do this. So for example, 2 of them, they actually pitched what they liked about Work Plus to our leadership, executive leadership and dean. Did a fabulous job. We almost cried listening to them. And then we just had an event. We actually put on 2 this month, a huge event for our department, and it was under the safety and security. And they took the lead on everything. I tasked people out. I knew who was good at certain things, and they blew me away. They blew me away. And I think those are the moments where you can see their strengths and their weaknesses, whatever they are, or what somebody is good at. Like some of them are just good at complete like canvas and flyers and marketing. Others are good at the IT and the just amazing, which then gives the confidence of the faculty and staff, like, oh, seeing them in these roles. And it's just a really, I think, a healthy environment for them, because they add little things to their resume. They have talking points when they interview of things that they did. So yeah, I think giving them those type of opportunities, and believe me, I'm sitting there sometimes afraid, because I'm like, you're talking to, you know, other people that maybe you haven't talked to before, who are, you know, up there like deans, and like, make sure you say this, or you know, just show them how to do it. And then once they feel comfortable, they just fly and they will shock you. So that's been my experience. I'm so happy with all the work that they've just accomplished and the work that they will accomplish. So yeah, it's just a great thing.
That's amazing. And I think after they do that, like, this is something that I think I want to grow in this academic year, is after we give them those tasks and they do this amazing work, maybe it's our job to sit down with them and share with them and ask them, like, what skills do you think you gained by this experience? Right? And see what they can articulate. Like, we know what that is, right? But like, I think hearing what they think they got out of it and trying to help them understand that what they did is super valuable. Like, how much, Risha, did that help your job? Like, probably so much.
Well, and I learned from them, because they were like, no, the one girl, she found another avenue. And then they started to work with other students from other departments who were, like, say, so one person was on the marketing team in our department, and they connected with that student worker who's on the marketing team who did like Zoom stuff. So now they're branching out, connecting with other worker learners. And it's just, I'm seeing how it's growing for them. So it's really fantastic to watch what they do.
Yeah, I love that. And I think like the recognition afterwards, and then the check-in of like, what skills did you grow? Because I noticed that a lot of students are really humble, and they're like, oh, I was just at the career fair, like checking students' wristbands to go in, like I was the bouncer, right? And it's like, no, but like what you were doing is important. Every student has to check in, and you telling them you have to go check in, like what are you gaining? Communication, leadership, teamwork, because you're probably getting asked questions and you have to know the right person to go to get those questions answered. You know, like, yeah, technically you're the bouncer, but you are gaining all of these valuable skills that they may not know how to articulate initially. So helping them do that. Go ahead.
And this is my last point. I know this sounds really corny, but one of the highlights was one of the students on another floor gave me a Sun Award. A student, actually 2 students gave me a Sun Award. And I was like, oh my God, just thanking me because they went to one of the events. And that literally melted my heart. And I was like, I got a Sun Award, 2 of them from worker learners. That's huge, I think.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I think they probably understand the value if they knew to do that for you. And that's just kudos to you on your supervising experience. Yeah.
What I do with my student workers is I tell them, and I learned this from one of my mentors years ago about leadership, is I give them the what and the why, and I let them figure out the how and let them work together. And I just turn them loose, and then I go back and, you know, if it's something important, I'll check in on them or check up on their work afterwards. But I don't care how they get it done, as long as they get it done in a timely manner, you know. And then I teach them what skills I can teach them in our little impromptu meetings that we have on almost a daily basis, because we're all in the same room together. So, but yeah, I get a lot of really great results. I have one student right now that I want to promote coming in the new fiscal year and have him be our lead student worker, because he trains my other new student workers and he's teaching them stuff. And so it's a pretty cool environment.
That's awesome.
That's how our whole team works anyway.
Yeah, and I think those little checkpoints every day, like you said, Roger, is really important, that you're there and accessible to them, you know, and having that kind of open door policy where your students know they can come to you and ask you for help if they need it, and you trust them to do the work that you give them to do, and you're letting them kind of muddle around and figure it out. And some will fly sky high with that, and others won't. And then we know who can stay in our department and who we might need to help find a new role, right?
And it kind of gives me a good gauge of who can do what. Like my one student that I want to put in more of a leadership role, he's not really good with hardware. So he knows that, but I have another student that is. And so he goes to that student and they work this stuff out on their own. And then, you know, if they get stuck on something, they know my door's wide open. So they just pop in my office and go, Roger, I need some help. I don't know how to do this. And
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a pretty cool. I got a good group of people.
Awesome. I love that. Great. Well, I think I only have, we're 1 minute left. So here's my contact information. Let me put it in the chat really quick. Feel free to send me an email, a Slack, anything that you all need. Again, if you want access to the other side of Big Interview, let me know. If you want us to come in and train your staff on career conversations and how to have those, how to have those with your students, that's totally cool. We do that all the time. So thank you all so much for being here today and playing along with the ChatGPT and getting some great interview questions and updating your job descriptions for your next round of students. Thank you.